Is vocal tuning included in mixing services? The simple answer is no. Mixing is mixing. Vocal tuning is way before it goes to mixing. I mean, when it comes to mixing, what we can do is you can add, whilst mixing, an auto tune. Put an auto tune on, but the auto tune is for the purpose of just smoothing the transition of vocals. Right? It's just to catch. It's not to correct tuning necessarily. It's not to really detailed correcting the tuning. It's just to smoothen that transition from note to note, and just basically, just literally keep it smooth. That's all that you would do in the vocal tuning aspect in the mixing sense of things. Before mixing, way before mixing, that's when you need to be tuning vocals. No mixing engineer is going to sit there and spend 5 hours before mixing the track tuning the vocals. It's just not something any mix engineer is going to do. A mix engineer will do it if it's factored into the price, but as a mixing service, think of mixing is the mixing. It's the gain, the EQ, the compression, the reverb, things like that, all these little elements that are part of mixing. That is what's being done in the mix, not tuning. Tuning is done before. So sitting there processing through Melodyne, tuning, like detailed tuning. I mean, obviously if something is clearly out of tune, this can be highlighted to the client and said, like, look, take this back, tune this, because this section here is way out of tune. It's something that a lot of mix engineers will do, but it will come at a cost separate from the actual mixing service, because it is something that is totally different. Tuning takes time. It's not a case of just going, right, tune vocals, bosh. Auto-tune does technically do that, but not to the detailed level that you'd want when it comes to tune vocals. You want to go into Melodyne, you want to use Melodyne to tune your vocals, ideally. Something along those lines, where you're really, really tuning the vocals very, very, in a very detailed manner. Whereas auto-tune is just literally going to correct tuning issues by slight ranges, and it's also used as a more of an effect in some cases, like that whole T-Pain effect on the vocal. You want to sound like Cher or something like that. It's used as an effect. That is something that's quite creative, and that's something that you can speak to your mixing engineer about, and they can process the vocals in a similar way. But ultimately, tuning and what you think of as tuning, it's not part of the mixing engineer's job. It's a vocal engineering job where, when you're doing your comping, when you're doing your getting your vocal raw recordings ready to be mixed. So comping the track, removing all the unwanted noise. Like the amount of songs that I get sent for mixing, and there's talking before the verse starts. Cut all that off. That all needs to be cut off before it goes to mixing. Get your stems right, get them ready for mixing, so they're tuned, everything's cut out. Little cough or splutter halfway through a take, cut that out. All these things, this is all prior to actual mixing. So do all these sorts of things prior to mixing. I'm going to do a little tutorial video on this subject, and it basically be what needs to be done to a raw vocal recording before it gets sent to someone like myself for mixing. It's very, very, very important, and so many people think that vocal tuning is part of the mixing engineer's job. I mean, the definition of it is mixing. Tuning isn't mixing. There's nothing to do with tuning, has nothing to do with mixing. The stems need to be tuned, ready to be mixed.